Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead Season 7. And this video is going to be reviewing the mid-season premiere of Season 7, which was called Rockin' the Road. If you are not caught up with The Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I suggest you exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So overall, I thought this was a pretty strong start to Season 7 Part 2. I thought it was a very good episode. I really liked how it was able to include all of the elements on the show. And I liked how it actually got the group out and fighting again. We finally see them taking action. We finally see them wanting to fight against the Saviors. And it's nice to see the group returning to some of their old roots, you know, their fighting spirit that we really haven't seen ever since the start of Season 7. So I thought that was very, very good for a start to this second half of Season 7. But like the title suggests, Rock in the Road, figuratively and literally, we saw the group encountering a lot of obstacles in their, plan to try to fight against the Saviors. Most of this episode, the first half, really dealt with the group meeting with the leaders of the Hilltop and the Kingdom, that being Gregory and King Ezekiel. And obviously with Gregory, as we probably figured, that meeting did not go well. We've known that Gregory is a coward. We know he's not somebody that's willing to stick his butt on the line to try to be tough, to actually lead. He hides in his office. He doesn't want to have anything to do with the fight, and they're unsuccessful in persuading him, despite the fact that Gregory acknowledges that they would be better off without the Saviors. He acknowledges that, but he's not willing to do anything. However, during this meeting, Enid actually went out and talked with some of the people in the Hilltop, and I think about a dozen or more fighters, actually people from the Hilltop, volunteered and are willing to fight. So even though Gregory is not on board, Rick acknowledges that they have Jesus, they have Maggie, they have Sasha, people that are willing to work inside of the Hilltop to try to get people to join the cause. And I think that as Season 7 progresses to the season finale, we might see more of that coming into fruition. Now, Jesus then takes Rick's group to the Kingdom. They finally meet King Ezekiel for the first time. Obviously, they're very shocked by the tiger, like Morgan and Carol were. And during this meeting, they are reunited with Morgan. We have not had a reuniting with these people ever since Season 7 started, but Morgan was able to reunite with the group. He tells them about the community. He does acknowledge that Carol left, but he does not tell the group where she is at. He tells them that basically Carol wants to be alone, she wants her privacy, and doesn't really reveal where she's at. So they know, but at this point, Morgan is unfortunately informed of what has been going on. He found out about Abraham and Glenn dying, as well as what happened with Spencer and Olivia. Well, Rick and the group make a passionate plea to Ezekiel to join their cause, noting that all three of the communities have something in common. The Saviors are very dangerous, and this is something that they need to do in order to, improve their futures, because otherwise something is going to happen. Well, Ezekiel actually seeks counsel from different individuals that he trusts, one of them being Richard, who he obviously wants to fight. We saw that he wanted to do that. He also asked Morgan what he thought, and of course, we're wondering, well, is Morgan willing to fight, or is he kind of sticking more with his Aikido principles? And he's not really committed either way, but what he does decide ultimately is that he feels that it's better for them to try to find some other solution, and maybe that would include kidnapping or capturing Negan, that maybe that's the key. Morgan wants to avoid a fight. We did see that, and we saw that Ezekiel had the same feelings as well, and he expressed his doubts. Now, the Rock in the Road title comes from a story that Rick told Ezekiel to try to convince him to fight, and it had to do with this boulder, this rock that was placed in the middle of the road. A king placed it there, and basically people would, ride along on their horses or in carriages. They'd try to avoid the rock, but they found that it wasn't possible to do so. Horses would break their legs and die. Carriages, wheels would fall off. and it was causing a lot of problems, but people kept going around it, ignoring it, avoiding it, hoping that they could, maybe figure out the problem later or just avoid it altogether. But finally, this little girl came along and she lost supplies whenever she was crossing and things broke. She was left with nothing. But she realized this rock in the road was causing a lot of problems for people. And she realized, look, if people keep coming along this road, it's going to cause them harm. So she dug up the rock. It was a hard thing for her to do. It was a lot of challenge, but she did. And as a result, she was rewarded. There was a bag of gold that was underneath the rock, and she was able to take it. And the king wanted to reward the person for doing this. So what the thinking is that obviously, the saviors are the rock in the road. They are causing a problem for all these communities, and the communities can continue to avoid the rock, to try to give in, to try to give them things, but ultimately, Rick's group saw that it's not going to work. People still died even when the group cooperated. And while things with the hilltop and the kingdom haven't been as bad, eventually something might happen. Eventually, they might not be able to keep them outside of the walls of the kingdom. Eventually, maybe, Gregory might find that something bad will happen and they might have to take action, but nobody's taking action. And Rick is saying, look, step up. Take action. And we had Benjamin, who also tried to plead to Ezekiel, noting that his father said, when you have the chance to be a hero, or when someone tells you to be a hero, step up and be a hero. But ultimately, Ezekiel decides not to join in the cause. He notes that before, when he started this community, he wanted to expand. He sent people out there to fight the walkers, and ultimately this ended up in people getting killed or losing limbs, and he's not willing to take that risk. Rick is very disappointed by this, but there's nothing that he can do. Ezekiel has made his choice. However, Ezekiel does allow Daryl to stay at the kingdom for protection, because obviously if Daryl is seen by the saviors, he will be killed, because obviously they realize that Daryl escaped, that Fat Joey was killed, and the saviors want to get Daryl and get revenge for him for doing that. So Daryl stays, but he's not very happy about this. He wished that he could go with the group, but he's not able to do so. But Rick tells Daryl, look, stick with it. Try to talk to Ezekiel. Maybe you and Morgan can help change his mind. So there's a little bit of hope, but Daryl has to stay at the kingdom. So that was basically the first half of the episode. We did get to see a scene with Carol, but it was merely her giving advice to Benjamin. She ended up running into him in the woods, gave him advice about how to survive, kind of, was skeptical about his hopeful look, but we at least saw Carol. She is still safe, but she has not reunited with anybody yet, but obviously I think it'll happen in the future. That's inevitable. Now, the second half of the episode was really dedicated to Rick's group going back, and they find that there are these car barricades in the road where they're at. They're scouting out around the area where the sanctuary actually is, and they notice that there is dynamite and RPG rockets all stretched along the highway. Well, the group decides, hey, let's take these. We can use them. So they end up going out, they take the dynamite, they take the RPG rockets, and it's at that point that they notice that there's a herd that's coming their way. There's this huge walker herd, but they need these items, so they take them. And the other thing is they're going to put the cars back so that the saviors don't know that they came by. Well, of course, the herd's getting closer and closer and closer. Rick and Michonne do something absolutely cool. This is probably one of the best, moments in walker killing history. They get in the cars that basically there were these two cars, and the wire that was used to hold the dynamite stretched along and were attached to the cars. They hot wired them and drove the cars into the herd as far as they could go, just tearing walkers in half as they went along. It was so cool, such a great scene to see. I loved it. It was absolutely amazing for them to do that. But they almost got killed. They could not get the whole way through. They had to get out, make their way back through the walker herd, almost getting eaten in the process, but they miraculously survived. And you saw Michonne and Rick share a moment, kind of convincing each other, yes, we're the ones that survived. We can do this. Seeing that even though they were close to dying, they proved just how tough of survivors they are. So that happened at that point in the episode. Now, when they go back to Alexandria, the Saviors arrive. Simon arrives with a bunch of people, and he scouts out the area to look for Daryl. He sends the Saviors in, trying to see if Daryl is there. Rick's group says no, he's not, but they want to check, and they find out, yeah, Daryl's not there. It turns out Rick's group was telling the truth. Of course, they don't really know where Daryl's actually at, but ultimately, at the end, Simon says, hey, if you see Daryl, you need to let us know, no matter when it is. If you don't, it's not going to be good for you. And obviously, Simon is there, sees the bleak state that Alexandria really is in, which I'll get back to in a moment. But obviously, the first scene of the episode actually dealt with something different. But we saw that in this episode, we saw that there were a lot of failures to try to get people to join the cause. And obviously, Rick's group was feeling very down about this. They want to fight, they want to do something, but people aren't willing to join. Well, obviously, we get back to the early part of the episode. The very first scenes of the episode actually was Gabriel. And we saw Gabriel guarding the walls of Alexandria. And all of a sudden, we then see him going into the one house where the pantry is at, and he takes food, he takes weapons, he takes things, and he puts them in a car, and he goes outside the wall, and here we're thinking, oh, great, Gabriel's a coward again, he's turning and running just like he did back in the day whenever he locked out the people in the church. He's doing it again, great, but it turns out, no, he's not. Actually, somebody is forcing him to do this. We see somebody who we presume to be the Boots character that was shown in that after credits scene back in the mid-season finale, and we see Gabriel drive off. Well, the group realizes that Gabriel is gone. Here they thought that, yeah, like we thought, he just took off with everything like the coward they thought he was, but he isn't. It just turns out he's a prisoner. He's being held against his will by somebody. We don't know who, and we don't see him again, but Rick is able to figure out that this is the truth because Gabriel left his Bible. Obviously, we know Gabriel's a preacher. He wouldn't just leave his Bible by itself, back at Alexandria if he was leaving. So Rick's group realizes that something is going on. I think we had Rick, Michonne, Aaron, and I think Tara went along, and maybe Rosita. But we had a group of them leave to go find Gabriel. They go around that area where Rick and Aaron got the supplies from that boathouse, and they see footsteps. So they start to make their way back that way, and all of a sudden they get surrounded by probably 100 to maybe 150 or more people that just come out of nowhere. And obviously we've never seen these people before. They're not from the hilltop. They're not the kingdom. They're obviously not the saviors, or else things would have ended up worse. And they're not Oceanside. So there's another group out there. There's just this new group apparently that we just get introduced to at the end of the episode. They're surrounded, and Rick smiles. We just see Rick get this smile across his face, and I'm thinking to myself, what in the world is Rick smiling about? They're surrounded, and they're in danger. Like, what's so nice, Rick? Like, what makes you so happy? Well, I think we can deduce from everything that's going on, I think that Rick thinks that this is the solution that he has been looking for, that really, he hasn't been able to get anybody else to join his cause, but I think that what he was thinking in that moment was, hey, there's another group out here, and if I can work my magic, if I can do the right things and say the right things, I have fighters, I have the ability to fight this war. So that's what I think is going on. That was the end of the episode, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Is this group the solution that Rick is looking for, or are they bad? Are they villains? Are they going to be people that cause problems? Do they know the Saviors? Do they know other people in this world? I guess we're going to find out in the next episode, but there are a lot of possibilities, and I'm really, really excited to see what the last half of Season 7 has to offer, but I thought it was a good start. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think it was a great episode? Is there something that you thought was lacking in it? What did you think was amazing? What do you think is going to happen next? Don't be afraid to let me know. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming, and if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.